It's not good, folks, as we're now seeing China move in on Taiwan. And as a kind of a warning for them, they send over more than 100 warplanes to their defense zone.
I'm Allie Lynn to the WKRN.com alert desk. China's military sent more than 100 warplanes towards Taiwan in a 24-hour period in what the island's defense military ministry says is a daily record. The planes were detected between 6 a.m. on Sunday and 6 a.m. on Monday. China, which claims Taiwan as part of its territory, has conducted increasingly large military drills in the air and waters around Taiwan as tensions have grown between the two and with the United States.
Now, some of you guys might be wondering, why aren't we seeing more of this on the news? Believe me, I checked out each news outlet's YouTube channel here at home, and you're not going to see this update, at least for the bigger names and news, right? They still have it on their sites, but it's weird that no coverage was done here on YouTube. Let's ask the obvious question, how will this affect us? Well, it's kind of complicated if something big does happen over there. I mean, President Biden, he was set on having our military on the ground if an attack happened. Do y'all remember that? That actually happened.
What should Chinese President Xi know about your commitment to Taiwan?
We agree with what we signed on to a long time ago, and that there's a one China policy, and Taiwan makes their own judgments about their independence. We are not moving, we're not encouraging their being independent. That's their decision.
But would U.S. forces defend the island?
Yes, if in fact there was an unprecedented attack.
To be clear, sir, U.S. forces, U.S. men and women, would defend Taiwan in the event of a Chinese invasion.
Yes.
Now, before we go any further, do you think as if this agreement between the United States and Taiwan will be honored? I want to ask the tough questions, all right? Because this would mean that we would effectively be in a war, one that's happening thousands of miles away from our country. That is, if this happens. Now, some say that the drills that China's doing right now is not saber rattling unlike before.
Beijing's ships and jets were deployed around Taiwan on Saturday in drills seen as a response to Taiwan Vice President William Lai's visit to the United States. The People's Liberation Army said, in text accompanying clips it shared, the drills were to test combat capabilities of Joint Operations Forces. Taiwan's defense ministry said on Saturday it detected 42 Chinese aircraft and 8 ships involved in drills around the island, while 26 Chinese jets crossed the median line of the Taiwan Strait, or just about 25 miles from Taiwan's waters.
Because if you guys remember, China spoke out a lot after previous drills. This time around, they're quiet as heck. They ain't saying a whole lot, which leads some people to believe that these drills are meant to make their invasion of Taiwan that much faster. It's more like it's practice. And since the US, through our president, has already said that we'd send in forces if an invasion comes, well, what happens if we're too late? Again, we're 7,000 miles or so away from Taiwan. We can't just zip over there just like that. Although, of course, we have forces that are much closer, but I don't know if that's going to be enough for a superpower like China. Not to mention that China's military seems to be making a priority of blocking a response from the United States with something called A2AD, or anti-access, anti-denial. In fact, lawmakers here at home are worried about China's movement, especially about how they pinpoint parts of the world that they say belong to them.
There's territory in Japan, the Philippines, Vietnam, Indonesia, India, I think someone told me even Russia, that China claims that should be part of theirs. If they can bully their way into Taiwan, it is not the last place that they're going to try to bully their way into.
Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning responded to the exercises.
We have a clear and consistent position on the South China Sea.
U.S. lawmakers expressed concern that the U.S. has not yet delivered on nearly $19 billion in military sales commitments to Taiwan. Chairman of the House Select Committee on China, Mike Gallagher, told VOA that even though Congress is being hampered by logistical challenges, the defense industry must move faster to transfer military sales to Taiwan.
We haven't provided the multi-year appropriation necessary to replenish our stockpiles. Our defense industrial base has become very concentrated, it's very brittle, and we need to rebuild that. That's one of the lessons of the war in Ukraine, and we haven't learned it yet.
Some Republican lawmakers argue the Biden administration has not been forceful enough in its Taiwan policy, and that the military sales program to Taiwan is broken. An administration official pushed back.
Last year, we authorized the highest single-year number of foreign military sales notifications to Taiwan in at least 30 years. In this administration, we have authorized almost $6 billion in Taiwan arms sales.
But U.S. officials acknowledge defense contractors need to speed up their production.
We need to work with industry to find efficiencies in their processes, work with industry to make sure that they are opening production lines here and abroad on co-production to make sure that, that we're able to deliver on time.
Under the Taiwan Relations Act, the United States is required to ensure Taiwan is able to defend itself.
By this point, you're probably wondering, Ron, why the heck should we even care about Taiwan and China? Well, let's look at the facts, shall we? So remember when Pelosi was still the House Speaker and there was like so much noise of her going over to Taiwan? Y'all remember that, right? So that was a statement. You have to realize that Taiwan makes chips, not the ones that you eat, but the ones that we need for many, and I mean many different companies. I'm talking about cars, Teslas, any kind of EVs, smartphones, iPhones, Samsung phones, you name it, healthcare, communications, our own jets. I mean, it's really, really important. Crucial would be an understatement. So you got to think, how will this affect supply chains, right? Because they send these chips out on a global scale. I mean, look at this footage from last year. It's not just us that's going to be in trouble if semiconductors have a shortage.
Here in Germany and in Europe, some politicians are warning of a lack of semiconductors due to the tensions in Taiwan. Do people in Taipei have the same concerns?
Well, as you mentioned, people here do have concerns about a shortage of chips, but this is not because of the tensions in the region. For sure, an attack by China will cut off essential technological goods and human capital, but this is obviously not something most of people here are concerned about. Local people here are very used to China's threat, all the tensions between China and Taiwan, all the tensions between the US and China. In fact, what is being discussed more is the Chips and Science Act passed in the US last week. The act is a plan to increase the amount of microchips in the US. There has been Taiwan worried about its key position in making semiconductors. As we all know, Taiwan plays an important role in global supplier of semiconductors. It dominates the world's production of semiconductors.
At the end of it, the United States will be there for Taiwan because without them and their chips, well, there goes pretty much everything that we have. The chip factory that we have in Arizona is still in its infancy stage, so we really just can't cut out Taiwan just like that, you know what I'm saying? But what are your thoughts on this? Like, was this the plan all along, or should we just not worry about what lies ahead for both of these two countries, China and Taiwan? Now, before I go, I just want to thank you guys for hanging out. Thanks for dropping a like for the video. Thank you for subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.